From Sober Smash Studios, it's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
So welcome back to The Journey Show. We're really excited to be here again at the Sober Smash podcast studios here at Treatment Partners of America. My guest on the show, this latest edition of The Journey, is Darren Prince. Darren wrote an amazing book called Aiming High, How a Prominent Sports and Celebrity Agent Hit Bottom at the Top. You got to get this book. It'll really move you. The foreword is written by a close friend of his, Magic Johnson, the one and only Magic Johnson. I will tell you, we just got done wrapping up the interview with Darren. He's a tremendously busy guy. He's literally going from city to city to city. And we actually interviewed him while I think he was in like a Lyft or an Uber going to the airport. And in fact, I think the last half of the interview was actually done while he was in the airport. So guys, I'm going to ask you to stick with this. The first couple of minutes, the signal was kind of iffy because he was on the road, probably on Interstate 95 heading south. So stick with it. He shares some really, really great content. He's a super nice guy. His story is phenomenal. And get the book, if only just to look at the photographs. He's friends with so many cool people. It's unbelievable. And he also talks about his relationship with his dad. And, having lost my dad last year, it really resonated with me. So stick with it, guys. You're going to love the interview. And thank you very much once again for tuning in to the latest episode of The Journey. This is an unbelievable book. And, Darren, I have to tell you, I know we don't know each other, but I've seen you all over social media. And I said, who is this guy? I need to find out more about him and get him on my show. And I have to tell you, I read your book. I actually read it on a plane. I was on the way up to Michigan to go for homecoming, which I haven't done in many years, to meet up with my guys. And I read your book on the way to Detroit and back. And I have to tell you, it's fantastic. It really is. I was very moved by it. There was a lot of things in here that sort of resonated with me. Maybe part of it was because I know that you lost your dad. And I lost my father last year. So when I read that about your father, it really sort of resonated with me. So I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the kind words about the book.
So there's so many great things here in the book that I almost don't know where to start, but maybe give us a little bit of background, because I know that you became successful very early on at a young age. So give us a little background as to how that all started and what you were doing.
So I started a mail-order baseball card company in 1984 called Baseball Card City. And eventually the business really blew up. By the time I was 16, I was making in excess of $200,000 a year, buying, selling, trading rare, expensive baseball cards. I was a stockbroker to some high-end investors, and I would go to trade shows all over the country. And it got me, I guess, right into the middle of the industry. I started getting a lot of notoriety and recognition on a national level. However, growing up in school and elementary school and high school, I was also in very slow classrooms and classified as learning disabled and slow and dumb and verbally teased for it. And I took that with me. Looking back at it, even though I had the external success, eventually drugs came into play to make me friends.
Okay, I think we were breaking up a little bit. I think that you had mentioned that eventually at some point, you got successful, and then drugs started coming into it. And I think I remember reading part of the book where you talked about the fact that you were at camp. I think I saw something about camp, and you had indicated to one of the camp counselors that you had an issue with your stomach, and they gave you something, and that was sort of the beginning of things.
Yes, it happened early on at 12 years old at sleepaway camp with severe stomach pains. And the nurse gave me a green liquid that tasted nasty, and within 5 minutes, my whole world changed. I didn't know what was in it. I didn't know what I took, but I knew I needed to feel that way 24/7. Every day for the rest of my life, for the world to make sense and for me to feel comfortable and confident. And I chased it for about 3 weeks. Every night I would lie and go back to the infirmary, only to find out when my parents came for visitation day, it was Demerol. And that was the end of it after 3 weeks.
Wow. So maybe back up a second for us. Where did you grow up?
Livingston, New Jersey.
Yeah, and I kind of got the impression when I read the book that you sort of grew up. I mean, you grew up in a conservative Jewish household, a bit like me. Am I right about that?
Yes.
And you were close
Yes.
with your family. I mean, it didn't seem like addiction was something that was in your family. Am I right about that?
I mean, it runs on my mother's side. My uncle is actually in recovery. But I don't really blame that. I don't believe in the whole genetic thing. I know what it did for me. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people feel your percentages are much higher. My mom and dad weren't there. My uncle, my friends and family to know what it made me feel like. That was, me always having that inferiority complex of needing to feel whole. And look at it this way. Nobody else helped me get sober except God and the people in recovery, my spiritual brothers and sisters. So the same way, nobody else assisted me in getting high. That was all me.
Well, so by the time that you were really starting to make some serious dollars and you were running all over the country and it sounds like you had some unbelievable clients. I mean, there's a whole thing here about Magic Johnson and how close you were with him. I mean, was the addiction just completely out of control at that point?
Not the first 10 years, because when I started my agency, Prince Marketing Group, in 1995, I was 25 years old. It was very manageable. It was fun. It was enjoyable. There was a stage where I felt like it's just what I needed to be that social butterfly, that networking machine. And I do tell people that for many years it worked. And then eventually what turned out to be, living to use turned into using to live. And I realized that it was getting to a point where I couldn't do anything without them. My day would not start. It wasn't about eating or anything else. It was about getting my hands on my opiates.
Yeah, because I kind of got the impression from what I read here that in order for you to have a good time, you almost couldn't do it, unless you were using or high.
I couldn't function. No, it just got to a point where without the magic of no pun intended of my opiates, I just knew I couldn't do it. I had I felt that void inside without them.
Yeah, and I also know there was some really graphic and interesting stuff about the whole issue of steroids. Maybe you can fill us in with that a bit.
That was another one. Coming into college, my freshman year at University of Bridgeport, I was one and done, as I'd like to say. I made it 1 year, but I developed friendships with guys that'll last a lifetime. And scrawny, 130 pounds, made the baseball team. I was great in the field. I didn't have the strength at the bat, and that year was literally about making a lot of money, partying my ass off and taking steroids. And I had a .86 GPA, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody their freshman year in college. But for me, somehow, some way it worked. I caught the industry at the right time. And that's what life was about, partying, making a lot of money, taking steroids. I put on probably 40, 50 pounds of muscle weight. And I really started thinking this was the perfect life at the time.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me when I first started to read the book was the foreword that was written by Magic Johnson. I mean, what a friend! What a friend he is to you. I mean, he's like a brother.
Incredible, no, 100%. And I talk about it in the book when I called him on that day, and it was probably November of 2006, and my dog died. We just lost our biggest corporate account. My house had a massive flood, and I came clean about the opiates. And the other three things, although he was sympathetic and supportive and said, I understand losing a dog, you'll get through it. Yeah, you still have a lot of other good business going on. The house will be brand new once it's fixed, and you'll be able to sell it a lot quicker when you're ready to move. But this opiate problem, Darren, is a major, major concern of mine, and you need to get your life in order. He could have easily just kicked me to the curb right there, but, he didn't. And even the way the whole forward came about, man, in the book, I was with him in Miami last January, and I told him what I was doing. And I waited for the right time with this whole opiate epidemic. And he was so excited, like a proud big brother, smiling, high-fiving me, and just said, man, you waited for the perfect time. It's not about the agent life. Now you can bring people into that world through the beauty of recovery to help other people and let them be a fly on the wall of what it's like in this whole super agent life. And he just said it. He goes, man, this is going to be a bestseller the first week it comes out. And then I asked him, about doing me the honor, and we both kind of had tears in our eyes, and he said it would be his honor.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he was very close with your whole family. I mean, there's a couple of sentences, and I'm going to read it because it was so unbelievable. And he says, meeting Darren's parents helped me realize how important family was to him. His business wasn't about making money. It was about building relationships and growing extended family. He made me part of his family, and he became a part of mine. I mean, wow. I mean, I was blown away when I read it, and just amazing, just an amazing human being. I've seen the special that he did where they talked about his relationship with Bird, but it seems like you had equally as close a relationship with the guy.
100%. I mean, and still do to this day. I mean, you know, he's a mogul of epic proportions for athletes, but I still, you know, a couple times a month we find that time to speak. We still do a lot of work with each other. I'll tell you, even the first words on the phone calls, how's your mom? How's your fiance? How's the boys? How's your sister? Always before anything about business.
Yeah, unbelievable. And you know, there's a couple other issues I want to talk to you about. You know, when I was a kid growing up, one of my heroes was Muhammad Ali, and I remember my dad coming into my room the morning after he lost the title to Leon Spinks, and I was just devastated. And I read the story about how you were in the room when he basically mended his relationship with Smoking Joe. I'm almost speechless, just unbelievable. So maybe shed a little bit of light on that, what that was like, because I mean, you know, I think it was HBO or Showtime. One of those guys did a whole special on Smoking Joe about how, I mean, you know, at one time he was friends with Ali, and then, you know, when, you know, the fight took place, I think it was a Thriller in Manila, how, you know, Ali said some horrible things about him.
I was a part of both documentaries. The Fight of the Century, One Nation Divisible, which won a ton of Emmys. I think that came out in 2000, and that was all about Ali Frazier one, and then the Thriller in Manila one was the Showtime one that came out about a year before Joe passed away. But that was it. I mean, that was the story that I had to come out with in the book, because my dad, when he was alive, always wanted me to tell it, and I just really didn't know what the right platform was. And I was like, who's going to want to? Yeah, they want to hear about the story, about what happened, what was said. Did they hug? Did they make up? It's the greatest rivalry in the history of global sports that we'll ever achieve. But who am I to tell it? And then as this opiate epidemic getting worse and worse, and I celebrated 9 years sober last year, like you, I lost my dad. I got honored at a huge event for Turning Point Rehab in New Jersey. And then 2 weeks later, Dr. Oz called, put me on with Darryl Strubber, and I got a call from the Trump administration that they wanted me involved in this opiate epidemic. And then I met my publisher, Anna David from Lighthouse Publishing, and she connected me with Krista McGinnis and said, you guys should talk. You have an amazing book. And that was it. I was like, now I found the platform for the greatest story never told in sports, that I was so privileged to be there, but so broken in the moment that all I could do was be high on opiates because I knew I wasn't worthy. I spent hundreds of days. I've been at Ollie's house in Darien Springs. Joe, forget about it. 3-4 days a week we'd be together. He was a second father to me, yet I could not feel a part of these two kings in one room at the exact same time. And I couldn't be present for it. And even the next day, sitting center court with them at the NBA All-Star game with Magic and Cookie to my left, and Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears were dating at the time to my right, and Puffy came over, and Jay-Z and Michael Jordan and Kobe and all this craziness. And I did not feel worthy of any of it. And I was in and out of the bathroom. So
yeah, it was amazing. I mean, and I didn't know this because, you know, I always thought, that when Frazier died, when Joe Frazier died, that, you know, he hadn't mended that relationship. And until I read that portion of the book, I was like, wow, I didn't know this. And I don't know if anybody, until you wrote your book, would even know that.
Welcome to Treatment Partners of America, your partner in recovery. Treatment Partners of America is a unique, state-of-the-art substance abuse facility. Our trained professionals first focus on finding the core issues in trauma that lead to addiction, with some of the best doctors, nurses, and behavioral health techs the industry has to offer. We offer personalized one-on-one therapy 5 days a week, raising the bar to a higher level of standards. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, eating disorders, gambling, sex and love addiction, or even relationship addiction. Treatment Partners of America has specialists to treat and to help heal your addiction long-term rather than attempt a temporary 30-day quick fix.
So there's a couple other relationships in the book that I want to talk to you about. Evel Knievel. You know, when I was a kid, my father took me to see Evel Knievel jump, I think it was 12 double-decker buses at Wembley Stadium in London, and that's when he crashed. And after they, slapped him to his feet, he said, "You'll never see me jump again." And of course, that wasn't true. But he was sort of one of my heroes, and I had the little toy that you could wind up and shoot off the Evel Knievel motorcycle. We all had it, right?
We're probably the same age. I have it too. Yep.
All right. So tell us about your relationship with Evel Knievel, because it's just another amazing guy.
Evel was one of a kind. When I first got him as a client, we did a slot machine deal, an online slot machine deal, and he loved Joe and Muhammad and Magic. Those were three of my guys, and Hulk Hogan. Him and Hulk, lived around the same area, beer winner. And but man, his swagger was there till the day he died. He said to me one day, he's like, "Darren, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, two of the greatest champions that ever lived. Hulk Hogan, greatest wrestler that ever lived. Magic Johnson, one of the best at basketball and off the court. But there's only one goddamn Evel Knievel, and you can't compare me to anybody." But he just lived his life to the fullest. And about a week before he passed, he called me up and said beautiful words to me out of nowhere. I had no idea this was going to be the end, and just said that I appreciate everything you've done for me, and you mean the world to me. And considering he was one of the biggest icons of my generation at the time, it was like him, Pele, and Ali. That was just mind-blowing that he actually said those words to me on the telephone as well.
Unbelievable. And I think one of the other guys that was really, it seems like that you were very close with was Dennis Rodman.
So to this day, very close to Dennis. We speak every day.
Yeah.
It's so much more. Dennis and I love to talk about that. It's so much more, man, at this stage in our life about the family, the love, the respect that we have each other, than the business. We've been through so much together, but he's always there, and we're always there for him. I mean, my dad passed away. He was the one client that got on a plane to come to the funeral.
Unbelievable. Yeah, Tim Grover talks about, Dennis Rodman's relationship with Michael Jordan. And so this is an interesting, sort of dichotomy, because in Tim's book, he talks about how the fact that, he felt like that Dennis was trying to, basically own the team, and Michael said, "Forget about it, it's not happening." And, either you get on the same page with me and Scotty, or, just go play somewhere else. And this presents a whole different side of Dennis. I mean, a soft side to him, really.
No, absolutely. I mean, even when it came to basketball, he was always a team player. He had his own routine. You had to understand him. It's the same like that right now with him when we work with him. He's not Magic. He's not Hulk. He's not Charlie Sheen. Everybody's different the way they operate. But we do know that when Dennis shows up, he can turn it on and off at any point. And he's got a big, beautiful heart, too, when it comes to something personal, something charitable, a family that needs help, a person that needs help, somebody sick, somebody that, unfortunately went through a hardship. He's one of the first guys that wants to help.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because it seems like he dealt with his own demons, and you even talked about the fact in the book about how, you used to drink with Dennis.
Yep. Yeah. I used to party my ass off with him. He's been doing great this year. He wasn't into the opiates or drugs as I did. But it's always been like drinking with him. But to both be at this stage in our life right now where we're just happy, sober, taking care of ourselves, helping people the best that we can. That's what Aiming High is about right now for me to, get this message of hope and recovery out there, showing people that no matter how high your bottom is or how low your bottom is, we're all susceptible to drug addiction, alcoholism, but there is a solution. There is a way to hope and recover and not give up on people that are struggling.
Yeah. So ultimately, how'd you end up getting clean? Because I mean, you're clean now. I mean, you're a husband again, I think, right? Am I right about that?
I'm engaged. We're going to get married next year. Yeah. Thank you. July 2nd, 2008. It was the greatest day of my life. What I thought was going to be the worst at the time turned out to be the best. I hit my knees with the last of my opiates in my hand. Was in the bathroom. I fell. I was shaking, crying, trembling, begging God with every fiber in my soul that I want this more than anything. I would walk away from Prince Marketing Group. I would work a job at 7-Eleven, McDonald's. I don't care what it was. Not that anything is wrong with that, but that's how committed I was to breaking these chains and this chokehold. That was such a deep, deep part of my soul. And I was lying for so many years about it. And I just couldn't shake it on my own. I didn't have the strength. And God came into my life at that moment. I stood up. The pills were flushed down the toilet. I didn't even know how it happened. I heard a voice that I got you when you're ready. And went to a 12-step meeting 20 minutes later in New York City. And it wasn't about Hulk Hogan. It wasn't about Muhammad Ali or Joe Frazier or Magic Johnson. I met people in a church basement at 8 o'clock at night that made me feel whole for the first time in my life. They made me feel accepted. They made me feel a part of. They made me realize that they would love me until Darren Prince learned to love himself. They didn't care about what I did, who I worked for. They just wanted me to stay sober one day at a time. And if I got it, the only thing they asked is to give the gift away to other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the conversations we have with families is the difference between getting clean and staying clean. So, what do you do? What's your ritual to stay clean? Because I'm sure it's an everyday part of your life now, making sure you stay clean.
I'm literally I just got to Tampa Airport. I was at my condo in St. Pete the last 2 days, shutting it down with my fiance and my boy Bo, who one of the big agents at my office. We had a big event at Komodo Monday night that Hulk flew in for, and Dave Grutman made a cameo, our boy, and Rodman and Chuck Zito and Kevin Harrington. And I needed a few days to kind of decompress. And I go to my 12-step meetings pretty much on a daily basis all over the world. I went to one this morning. Again, there's just nothing like that spiritual connection of being around people that you don't know, but you know everything about them. And you're not home, but you're home. And to have that 1 hour break throughout my day to keep me recharged, to give me the strength to help other people that are sick and suffering, or some that are on their sober journey already. We just want to talk about life. Our perspective and our perception changes the deeper we're connected spiritually. And the more we give back, then you just go to a whole nother level. And that's what I do. I mean, I worked for Banyan treatment centers in all over Florida. They've got locations in Florida, Illinois, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Turning Point in New Jersey. I'm on the board of. There's nothing better, man, than be able to not just find somebody that wants the help, but then direct them to how to start getting the help that they need, because there's a huge difference.
Right. So what do you do other than promoting the book, which, and I'm going to hold this up again, because if for the folks that maybe they're going to, where's the camera? Over here? There we go. The folks.
There it is.
There we go. Look, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to watch this show, Darren, and I'm going to tell you something. This is a phenomenal book. You should get it. Even if you're not in recovery, I guarantee you know somebody who's either struggling or working to stay in recovery. If you're a human being, you should read this. It's an amazingly moving story, and I applaud you for having the chutzpah, the guts to share this with people. Other than running around promoting the book, because I know you're everywhere, because every time I turn on the internet, I'm like, there's Darren. Once this is all done, what are you going to do? Maybe a movie? I mean, what are you going to do with your life?
It's funny. I'm actually in talks right now. I met with somebody that's part of Lionsgate, another documentary company that's come to me. It's actually one I'm supposed to meet next week. Prince Marketing Group is my prime focus when it comes to professionally. My clients know that, we're busier than we've ever been, but this is a story that I need to keep getting told. I was blessed 2 weeks ago to land in Los Angeles. It made international bestseller already in 4 different countries: Australia, England, USA, and Canada. And Saturday, after my Barnes & Noble's book signing in Livingston, New Jersey, I literally get a screenshot from the marketing department. It hit #1 on new release in Amazon. So
I love
that's great, because it's not about me. I've got a higher power that's working for me right now. And, he needs me, I think, just as much as I need him. And the world needs to hear this message. They really do. There's a lot of us out there sick and suffering, living with our own demons. And like you said, the book, yeah, there's a huge recovery component, but there's also a motivational component where, I didn't give up in business. I had my ups and downs. I made a ton of money in my teens. I lost it all in my mid-20s. What I did to pick myself back up, surround myself with smarter people, more talented people, more gifted people. I learned from their years of mistakes. I also learned from all their triumphs and their victories. And it saved me years and years of morphine so I can get back on my feet a lot quicker.
Yeah, one of the things that you talk about and seems to be a very consistent component of people who are in recovery is the spiritual nature of recovery. And just everybody that I talk to who's in recovery, and I've interviewed Daryl, I've interviewed Vance Johnson and Randy Grimes, those guys, and they all talk about that spiritual component, not necessarily a whole religious thing. And, being raised in an Orthodox family, I had enough of that as a kid, but there's a certain spiritual part of being in recovery. And I know you talked about it, and it's in the book too. I noticed that.
It's not, and I grew up Jewish, and I got nothing against my religion. I love Jewish people. I love everybody. But to me, as I told my mother, religion, in my opinion, is more for, again, my opinion, people that are afraid of going to hell. Spirituality are for those who have been there. Right. And I've been there.
All right.
And I know I need to do whatever I got to do one day at a time to stay sober. But there's so many different techniques you learn being spiritual. One is learning to say what you mean what you say without saying you mean. Like our parents used to tell us, it's not what you say, it's how you say it when you were growing up. Or try to understand people instead of you being understood. Or the other one that I love is, in the heat of a blowout, I'd rather feel all right than right. Even if I know I'm 100% right. Because in 5 minutes, whatever I was about to unload on somebody about, I'm not going to remember what the heck it was. And I'm not going to have that emotional hangover now where I have to apologize. I feel like an ass, and I don't ever want to go there. And I'm still not perfect at it, but I'm a million times better than I've ever been.
I love it. I want to ask one other thing, and then I'm going to let you go because I can see that you're in the airport.
Okay.
Which is,
yes.
I know when my father died, I didn't realize how much I learned from him until he was gone. But one of the things you talked about here was, one of the things that my father talked about was the issue of, your reputation, right? It takes a lifetime to earn it and a split second to lose it.
To destroy it.
Especially now with social media. I mean, you could be poo-pooed in 10 seconds.
Absolutely. I'll never forget that. I mean, there's so many great lessons I had from my dad, and I know he's looking down proud. I was actually going to go before I left with my fiance and my boy Bo to bring him a book at the cemetery because I know he's waiting for one. But, he gave me so many beautiful lessons on life and in business. And, the idea is 1% carrying it through is the other 99%. It's not what you say, it's what you do. Your reputation is the hardest thing to uphold and the easiest thing to lose. You get one chance at it.
It's great.
Yep.
It's great. Where are you flying off to?
Los Angeles. I've got my big book release event on Sunday night at Beauty in Essex.
Okay.
And I've got a bunch more press I got to do. I'm doing my publisher, Anna David, has a big podcast. So I'm doing that tomorrow. Then Monday, Good Day LA is having me and Dennis Rodman on from Dodger Stadium, which would be pretty exciting.
That's going to be great.